J&J Trucking. Let's go. Ooh. Yeah. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. Today we are live in the studio once again with the man, the myth, the professor, Cody, coming all the way from Indy. And of course, your host for the evening, Shelton Walker. Boys and girls, welcome. Hope you guys are having a happy Sunday, a happy weekend. Although football is not being snapped and nobody's making tackles, football has been all up in the news. It's been a busy one over the last few days with running backs, with cats getting arrested, new facilities popping out. We've got a lot to talk about. Contract and negotiations, all kinds of things with Matt Stafford and the Rams, Mims getting traded, Addison going way too fast, speed kills, and KC making some changes. Is that going to make it a little bit of a bump? And the running back situation has been all over the place. You called it a few weeks ago. It is snowballed, I think, bigger than what you and I could have even anticipated. I think we hinted towards it, but you never know what to expect. So, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. The running back situation we talked about in episode 7 or the seventh week that we did the show, and I hinted at it that there's some guys that aren't happy with what is gonna happen, and I think the running backs saw the writing on the wall. And it's going to be interesting. We're going to dive into all that. Guys, the running back deal is going to be 2 parts, and it's jam-packed. I got 2 pages worth of stuff for you guys, so I'm excited, ready to rock and roll.
Professor's been fired up for this show for the last 3 days, so we're excited. I'm excited. Happy to have you here. J&J Trucking, how you doing? Logan Walker, yo. Muddy says, rest in peace to Chris Claybook's NFL career, arrested for the 2nd time this year over domestic violence. Lord. Adrian, what's going on, man? What's up, High Top fam? Boys and girls, make sure you guys drop a like, show some love, subscribe. This family is growing like a weed, and I love every second of it. So, first order of business, let's talk about Addison. That's your boy out there, and the Vikings going 140 in a 55. Absolutely just hot, too hot to handle, okay? Speed on and off the field. Cody, talk to me, big guy. What's the take going up there in Minnesota for your squad?
Yeah, Minnesota's not happy, okay? The first words out of his mouth was, let's get paid, when when the GM called him and said, we're going to pick you up first round of the draft. You know, he got $7 million signing bonus, and he went and spent it on a Lambo SUV, and apparently can't keep his foot out the gas. He got caught with 140 mile an hour in a 55 at 3 a.m. by the Minnesota State Patrol. Highway Patrol, and it's not a good look, man. It's just, I get you're a kid, but you've struggled in mini rookie camp a little bit. You had an injury during that, and then you're driving around at 3 a.m. when you should be getting ready to go to. I mean, we start OTAs this week. You should be studying the playbook.
Yeah, something. I mean, we've talked about this earlier before the show. Addison obviously was the hottest thing since sliced bread when he came off the market in college football when he left Pittsburgh. He was the 4th rated ranked wide receiver for receiving. He had tiny hand Pickett's throwing to him out there in Pittsburgh. Again, he won the wide receiver award, best wide receiver award in college, was the hottest thing when he entered into the portal, was kind of that first taste of the portal, and went directly to USC, cashed in. There was a lot of talks about what he was getting paid to go to USC. And look, you don't blame him. Went to the Heisman winning quarterback in Caleb Williams to throw him the football. Why wouldn't you? You want to make sure that you increase your stock as much as you could. But he wasn't the first wide receiver taken. And that's because in his last year in college, he dropped all the way to 59th ranked for total receiving yards, which you got to think with an offense like USC had and with your Heisman winning quarterback at the helm, he should have probably had a little more success than what he did. Now, could that have been that early success, that early taste of success getting to his head? Should that have been a red flag for Vikings already? I don't know, but you can't hate him for not wanting to tag team them up with Justin Jefferson. I mean, it seems like on paper it could be the ultimate threat and ultimate duo, especially just giving Kirk Cousins another person to sling the ball to on top of losing Dalvin Cook. I mean, you guys feel like you're moving in the right direction. You had a phenomenal year last year. I'm watching the quarterback thing right now on Netflix, and I forgot how good they were. I mean, they were a hell of a football team last year. Just couldn't really get out of their own way. And this was a good draft pick for you. Obviously, we had our draft Gonzaga or whatever we want to call it. Spectacular. You were excited for that draft pick, as you should have been. But this is very alarming to be going 140. Now, I do want to stay here. I was talking about this pre-show. We're guys with 3 on our mics. Who are we to say, what are you doing? Who knows how we would have acted with $7 million in the pocket at 21 years old? I probably just as dumb, to be honest with you. But I do think that at some point you've got to have this self-understanding of that, like, hey, I put the right people around me, number one. But two, this is something, too, that I speak to with Florida Gators. They have the Gator Made program, which helps them build around them, right? Create a life after football because, it goes by so fast. You see these guys all the time. I was talking with Major Wright about it, where his entire book is discussed around what do you do after the fact, because they make all their money in such a short amount of time. Then afterwards, they've got another 60 years they have to live off of, but they live for those 7 to 10 years as if they're going to make that money for the rest of their lives. So hopefully somebody can kind of get a wrangle on this pretty quickly, and this is just a thing of the past, but we're hearing too much of it more and more. Henry Ruggs is another situation where these kids are just getting in too much trouble too soon. And look, I think for Vikings guys, where you guys are at, this is not something you need right now, especially with the Dalvin Cook situation.
No, and another thing, just to piece on that is, Kirk Cousins might have to get that nice van out and come pick his wide receiver up because he might be getting his license suspended.
Hey, so you watched the quarterback show already. I'm a little behind the 8 ball, but I've worked my way through a few episodes, and I texted you, I think, after episode 1. I go, I love Kirk Cousins. The guy is a $100 million man living like a $100,000 accountant. Has like a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, like a 55-inch TV screen, kind of tucked away, like just very minimal, right? Nice big piece of land. So I'm sure he probably paid. Honestly, his house probably cost $1 million. Maybe $1 million, simply due to the fact of where it's located. But the house itself is extremely cheap, and he's in Minnesota. It's probably only like $250,000 or $750,000 if I had to guess. I love it. The guy's dressed like he's about to head to Kohl's and go to his son's baseball game on Saturday afternoon. He's just such a cool cat. He's a little bit of a whiner. The guy gets his shit clocked and he whines about it a little bit, but he puts honestly, watching him and the effort he puts into his body, it feels very Tom Brady-esque like. And I think he gets overlooked a lot because it's Kirk Cousins. You don't really feel like he's, this big brand, but he's a great quarterback. He always has been. He's always been somebody that I've enjoyed playing or watching, and had much success for him. Just but the effort and energy that he puts in to his body, to understanding the playbook, right? Watching him compared to Mahomes and Mariota has no clue what he's doing. Can we agree on that? Watching that?
Oh, for sure.
Like, I feel bad because I haven't got to the point. I'm pretty sure he gets kicked. He gets the boot here. We're kind of going on a little bit of a rant here, but what did I just do there?
I'm not sure. You shared your screen with your 9,000 tabs.
What happened, boys? Hold on. But watching Mariota, like, he goes to the playbooks with his wife. Like, she's reading it to him, and you could just tell him trying to read it back. Like, he's just, like, lost. Meanwhile, they clip over to Kirk Cousins. He's got shit coming out of his brain to dissect it and, like, electrify his brain to make him memorize it. Mariota just sitting at the kitchen counter going, son of a bitch, X663-2Y7. Like, no clue with what's going on, dude. I'm like, it is wild, the level of preparation these quarterbacks put themselves through. And, again, like, we don't realize how much time and energy it takes for them to be successful. I love it.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language. It's like learning Spanish.
It really is, dude. It's wild watching it. It's like, why make it so freaking complicated? But I understand. I get it. But it's like, dude, it's been cool. I criticized it at first, like, why these quarterbacks? But honestly, it was a really good pick because you got a Super Bowl quarterback, a longtime vet who's been doing it for a while, who's had nothing but, kind of overcame adversity, and then a top draft pick coming out of college, the hottest thing since sliced bread, gone ups and downs, and then obviously has a down during the shows. So you really got a little bit of everything. So kudos to them. I go back on what I said. I kind of hated on it at first. It wasn't the flashy names, but the season worked out to where you had all levels of it being a great show. I wondered after the fact, I'm like, it seems too good to be true. I wonder if they film like 10 quarterbacks and they're like, these 3 make the best stories. You think? Or do you think that those 3 were already designated?
No, I think it's designated because there's a lot of camera work that has to. I mean, they're in the facility quite
There's
a bit.
ton. Yeah, no, there's a ton.
Minus the Falcons, you don't see any of the facility, but the Vikings were like, yeah, come on in, like you're meeting rooms and everything, and Kansas City was on the field more than what I thought. They had that. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but they have that time where they essentially like just make up plays, like the players get to make up plays.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Too cool, man. I think there's something powerful in that. If you just watch that little clip, I'm sure a lot of teams do that, but giving, passing the buck over. That's how you continue to grow, is when you allow other people to run the ship, right? If you think that you have to control everything, that's when you start to lose it. But if you allow everyone a sense of power, things can grow a lot more.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Do you think there's going to be a season 2? Or you think this was a one and done deal?
I feel like there definitely could be, right? I would think that. I mean, yeah. I think you could have named it another position. Like you can name another. You can do wide receiver. You can do running back, and kind of keep it under the same umbrella, right? Like you could. There's plenty of people you can follow. Who would we not want to follow? I would watch a Nick Bosa show. I would watch a Dalvin Cook show. You know what I mean? Like there isn't anybody that I wouldn't follow. To be honest with you, I would watch Jason Kelsey. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody I wouldn't follow. It's just a microscoped Hard Knocks in a way.
I think it's better produced than Hard Knocks too. I really do.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Actually, yeah, I was gonna try to defend it, but Peyton Manning said these 3 were the best with different storylines and generation quarterbacks. He said not too many quarterbacks wanted to be a part of it. That's another thing that I thought of as well when you said would there be a second one. I just don't see people voluntarily doing this because it takes a lot of time. Like I'm watching this, I'm like, man, like they're in the middle of a season and they have to go do this and they got to do that and do these interviews and be cognizant of these things. I'm pretty sure, like, for the most part, they kind of let it run their own way. But thanks for that, too, legit, for letting me know that was the process. Because Peyton is the producer. I don't know if you've seen that at the end of it, but alrighty, good stuff sure. There. Good talk. Let's move on to the Rams can't afford Stafford. This is an exciting one here. Coach?
Yeah. What happened with the Rams? Okay, so you had it. The Rams were kind of a player away. They knew golf was not going to win them a Super Bowl. So what do? They go out and they make the big blockbuster trade, and then they sign Stafford to a big contract. It's 4 years, $160 million deal with a $130 million guarantee. Like we've always talked on this channel, that's the money that you're looking at. The word guaranteed, that means they can't get out of it. Last year he had some injury issues, and it's they have collapsed. They won their Super Bowl. They bought their Super Bowl, but they have essentially collapsed. And at one point they tried to trade him away. Nobody wants to pay that contract because the contract will have to go with him, and they have a bunch of dead money. So if they cut him, the money's gone. He gets the money. That's the problem with the $130 million guaranteed. So this is Tampa Bay-esque is what we're looking at. They go out, they win their one Super Bowl, and I think it's probably going to be the end of the Rams for a while. I'm predicting. I'm going to throw a prediction out there. Sean McVay is not the head coach next year for the Rams. I don't think he gets fired mid-season, but I think that he either one steps away or two, they let him go at the end of the season. They kind of finish up this Stafford contract, and then they restart with a rookie quarterback. I do see them drafting one of the stud rookie quarterbacks out of this upcoming class.
Well, they got Stetson.
Also.
Don't forget, they just picked up Stetson.
Oh
Bennett.
yeah, Stetson. Yeah,
he could be the guy.
Started.
So look, you get your little graphic here. It says a deal's a deal. Stafford said to the media because they were trying to renegotiate. And look, he's right. He came in, he did his job. But it's not your fault you put yourself into a bad deal. He's not at a point where he's trying to, Joey Burrow it or Tom Brady it, where it's like, yeah, let me renegotiate my deal so we can go win a championship. He's good. He came in and did what he needed to do. He grinded out with the Lions. He did that for multiple years in Detroit. Worked with them, tried to make it work. That he is done with that. He cashed in and got his ring. He's good. If you're the Rams, you trade his ass. That's going to be your best bet. You go trade him to Tampa. Look, I know Tampa's in a weird place right now. They probably won't because they just signed Baker, but I'm trying to think of a team that could be best suited. Maybe the Titans, right? You got Will Levis, who probably needs some time to get better. Tannehill, he's like a Jared Goff, right? Where it's like he's good enough to carry you and get you there, but he doesn't have the dog mentality to get you over the hump. If they're close, I could see the Titans making a push for that. Even with the quarterback room being filled the way that it is, they might be a team that could need them later on. I'm trying to spice up some other teams, but hell, the Niners. The Niners could be in a good place with Trey Lance on a trading block. We talked about that last week. With obviously losing Jimmy. Could Brock Purdy come in and still do what he did? We don't know any of that yet. The Niners would be a good trading partner with them, especially because they're built to win right now with Kittle, McCaffrey, Debo. They've got the talent that you need. They just need somebody at the helm to kind of really put them over the hump, because for the fact that they've almost made it to the Super Bowl the last 2 or 3 years and they just haven't been able to get there reminded me of what the Rams were with Jared Goff. So, look, the question, too, that we're asking, was it worth it? Was it worth the big trade and spending all the money? Because, like you said, it's a complete reset. They have lost everything. They spent all this money, and now they're upside down. And the only way it seems like to get ahead of things is you got to start all over again. Was it worth it? I think it was. You won a Super Bowl. We talked about this, too, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later on with the Bills. The Bills have stayed steady Eddie and slowly built this together. They haven't won anything yet. And at some point, the team's going to start getting older, and it doesn't transition. Like baseball, you don't want to sell the farm in baseball. Because in baseball, you can slowly build it through the farm system. NFL's a little bit different. You got pockets of windows, right? And you try to keep things consistent. So to build a dynasty like the Patriots did, I don't think we're going to see that for a very long time. So look, kudos to the Rams for getting it done, but I think they got to trade Stafford if they want to be able to bounce back within the next 3 to 5 years. And I think you're spot on with McVay getting the boot. I love McVay, but I just don't see him. I think he did what he had to do, and I feel like he's not ready to restart either. He's managing a bunch of old guys that just really don't care. He's got to find a new home for sure.
Yeah, and you ask yourself too, was it worth it? I think it was worth it. I think it was worth it for all parties. The problem is now they have that big, beautiful stadium, and the fan base is really booming, and you got to give them wins, because the fan base won't stay forever, especially where they're at, right? There's plenty to do without.
LA is like the West Coast Miami. Their fan base, I say it all the time, it's just not the greatest. It's just they come in for if they're winning games. If they're not winning, they're not diehard, and that's any fan base, right? But it's not like the A's where they show up in the Raiders. They show up no matter what. They're not winning. There's plenty of things to do out in LA. Okay, weather's great. I love you guys saying that Venables is going to be there next year. That'd be a fun one to talk with Jason about. Moving on. Let's get to the bread and butter, Cody. Are you ready to talk about a big guy?
Yeah, for sure. Running backs.
The running back situation. The market is down, and it is down bad.
Yeah, so it's down so bad they had a Zoom call with Dalvin Cook was on it, Christian McCaffrey. There was Saquon, Josh Jacobs, a bunch of running backs of guys that are premier running backs in the league, and they had a big Zoom call on what they're going to do. Now, I don't know what you can do. I have some suggestions, like we suggested a couple weeks ago. You shorten the first contract, and this is just it's really unheard of. So Dalvin Cook, let's just go over this real fast. Dalvin Cook has a $7 million deal at Minnesota waiting for him. It's on the table. He can go back to Minnesota for $7 million. He wanted to try to test the market to see if he was going to get more money. Saquon Barkley did not get his deal done. He effectively is sitting out, and
do you know what Saquon was offered? Not to cut you off, but I got to cut you off here. Do you know what he was offered?
I know he was offered he was wanting 15 to 18
he got offered
million.
Like 13 point something, which puts him third highest paid running back behind McCaffrey. I don't know who the second one is.
Yes, and he was wanting 15 to 18 million. Yeah,
and he's not worth it.
He's not
worth more Christian McCaffrey. He's just not. I'm sorry. I love Saquon. I think he's great, But you've got to understand they're trying to push. What they were trying to do is push the envelope higher, right? Kind of like what Deshaun Watson did. And the Browns ruined football with what they did for Deshaun Watson. So something has to set back, right? Because if they continue to hand these deals out, the NFL and the owners are going to find themselves with their hand in their pants. The other issue that nobody's talking about is they did this to themselves. And when I say they, the running back world did it to themselves. Zeke and Todd Gurley screwed y'all over. That's who you need to be pissed at, because both guys cashed in and then didn't show up once their cash checked. And they got a ton of money, and because it is so easy to replace them, even Eckler was complaining about guys not getting money. Eckler is exactly why they shouldn't get paid. He was a plug-and-chug player and ended up being the man behind Melvin Gordon. So when you got somebody like that who just can come in, like we've even said with Tank Bigsby coming in, he was a 5th-round draft pick, right? Even if they do give him first-round draft money or make their contracts a little more feasible to them, it's still not, the longevity isn't there. It's you don't have the Jamal Charles and Adrian Petersons anymore. They're not putting in the effort. And look, it's ironic that we're sitting here having this conversation. There's a ton of conversations with women athletics and WNBA and soccer not being paid enough. And the biggest non-sexual argument is that it's supply and demand. If you're not popular, right, and there's nobody watching, the money's not going to be there. The same thing is now happening with running backs. It's supply and demand. We have plenty of supply, right? There's just I don't need to pay you as much because I've got plenty of it to go around. I've got plenty of options. So there isn't the need for me to pay you, right? It's not there anymore. So it's unfortunate. I love running backs. I love to see them be successful, but in a sense, they've put themselves into this world and into this category and wanting more than what they're worth. Look, they're going to look at wide receivers. They're going to look at quarterbacks and be like, man, those guys are getting paid a ton. Yeah, but you also see that to be successful in those positions is much, much harder. We even talk about, too, the transition between running back from college to NFL is much easier. It's north and south. Guys are faster, guys are bigger, but running through holes is the exact same. Learning defense, learning, just more plays on all sides of the ball from wide receiver and quarterback. The level of talent just increases tremendously. And right now, wide receivers are a dime. They're not a dime a dozen. They are much harder to come by because half of them are speeding and the other half end up being a bust. Right? So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and where New York really, really kind of messed up is they signed Daniel Jones to that big deal last year. And so you signed Daniel Jones to the big deal, and you look, he's not good without Saquon. He's not. The proof is in the pudding.
He's an asset for sure, and they probably put a little more too much eggs in their Daniel basket. But look, if the Giants were the problem, somebody would have signed Saquon. Nobody signed him. Nobody signed Dalvin, right? It's not becoming a team issue. It's just they see the value isn't there. Look at Fournette. Jaguars walked, hasn't missed a beat, right? So
my only thing is I wonder if they have a non-trade clause with Saquon because he's not a free agent. They franchise tagged him, so he's going to get paid $10 million for this year. And he doesn't want to do it. He said he's going to sit out. Josh Jacobs said he's going to sit out. He has a $10 million 1-year franchise tag. Now, the Dalvin Cook, if I'm Dalvin Cook, I'm calling Minnesota, and I'm begging Minnesota for that $7 million contract.
Yeah, Dalvin's still available, but I forgot those other guys are franchise tagged, and they're gonna hold out. Look, Zeke. Remember Zeke held out to get his fat paycheck from Jerry Jones, and again, it didn't pay out for Jerry Jones. So. But then, if you're the Giants and you're the Raiders, you go, okay, so do we pay a guy $10 million not to do anything? But he's going to sit out, and so, but there should be a fine. I mean, there's got to be some consequences for sitting out a year too, right?
He won't get paid the game checks, so he won't make anything. So that $10 million is just going to go back into the bank. He won't make any money because he's not playing, and that's how the pay structure works. Is you got to show up to practice.
Look,
they're going to let him. They're going to let him sit. They signed James Robinson, a guy that you're familiar with.
There you go.
He played for Jacksonville for a while. Yeah.
Look, I don't think he's Saquon Barkley by any stretch, but you can go get a James Robinson, and you'll find somebody else probably come season come to maybe just do a dual running back. Look, you paid Daniel Jones that much money because you have some belief that he's going to be successful. The Raiders is a complete disaster, right? Devontae Adams wants out. Jimmy Garoppolo may or may not play due to injuries. It's a whole shit show. So honestly, Josh is probably winning that one. But neither team is on the cusp of even being a playoff team or a Super Bowl team anyway. So you obviously never want to sit out a year. But look, I think something's got to give, and someone has to hold their ground. I think the teams have more leverage here than the players do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and so let's get into the second section here of what to do about the situation. So I propose that they cut the contract down to 3 years, the first contract, with a no franchise tag available. So he plays 3 years, you develop him, you see what he has, and then if he's a top 20 pick, I put the no franchise tag. If he's not, then you can franchise tag him for 1 year for a 4th year. And I think that's what they need to do. Now the Zoom call's interesting. Could we possibly see all of the NFL running backs get together and go on strike?
That would
right
be
before
wild.
the season?
That would be wild.
Now it is a players' union. It's completely their right to strike. And what would it do? What would it do to the league?
I would just give me a bunch of Debos in the wide receiver slot. Just put them back there. Yeah, dude, that would be nuts. That would if you got everybody to buy in. And if I'm a running back, it may not be affecting me now, but it will affect me later on. So it benefits the running backs to stand together here. No matter how big or small, it stands for them to rather gather around one another and to take a stand. So we've seen it before. If I'm the player or the owners, you better pray this doesn't happen and try to figure something out. But we got to meet in the middle, right? There's got to be, a little push and shove. And for Saquon too, my thing is they've been very patient with Saquon. He's battled injuries his first few seasons with the Giants, and there's no cut, right? No, obviously you wouldn't want to cut him, but I feel like they've paid him to sit on the bench more than they've paid him to play, just due to injuries that he's been dealing with. Taylor's another one, right? Jonathan Taylor from the Colts.
Yeah, he's next year, so his contract elapses next year, and it's
okay.
If it's not fixed by next year, he's going to be going through the same thing of what these guys are going through, and the only thing I have to say about Saquon is he had his best year last year that he's had in the stat wise in the league.
He's been kind of mid. His first year was really good until I think he got hurt his first year too. But I mean, I had him in fantasy, him and Saquon together, and that was a hell of a year. But yeah, he hasn't been the Saquon of
Wes kind of hits it on the head right here with this comment. Hell, Jameis Robinson was an undrafted free agent and ran for 1,000 yards.
Yep.
So it's like, do you pay him?
He took over Fournette.
It's tough. Yeah.
And then they just cut him too. They just let him go once they had ETN as well. So it's a dog-eat-dog world, but it's a business. And so we'll see. Good stuff there. Way to call it as you did too, Coach. So moving on to the Buffalo Bills. Bills Mafia. This kind of goes the opposite of what the Rams are doing. They've been playing the long game, slowly building, making sure they've created I can't say dynasty because they haven't won, but you can call it like a mini dynasty where they've been competitive for the last few years now, and they've been at sniffing distance. They've had a chance.
Super relative for sure, right? And they make a bunch of primetime games. So let's bust down the Bills here. The Bills, they have Josh Allen. Josh Allen is great. Head coach Sean McDermott has done a wonderful job with a Bills team that was not good before he got there. He's kind of changed the culture there, which is really big. But you do have some issues. You got Stephon Diggs not happy. You have Isaiah McKenzie's gone, and they had to retool the offensive line. They got 4 new offensive linemen, including our boy Osiris Torrance, that got picked up in the draft. So it's one of those things where they're trying to just keep everything together. Like it's like playing Jenga, and you're just trying to, you have to remove some pieces, but you're trying to not topple over the tower, right? But Bills Mafia is hungry for a Super Bowl, and they want one. And the seat is starting to get hot for Sean McDermott, as crazy as that sounds after another playoff appearance. But they want to take the next step. They want to win Super
Here's
Bowls.
the issue, man. That division is brutal.
It doesn't matter, though.
I know.
It's
just bad timing. Just bad timing, man. That's all it is. If you think about like that Bills team, if they were 3 years earlier or 3 years later, I mean, they probably would have won one by now. But you're trying to go through Joey B. You're trying to go through Patty Mahomes. Now you got Tua. Now you got Rodgers out there. Always got the Pats kind of, giving you a hard time. It's just not fun for you. You got T-Law now you got to go through to get to the tippity top. It's you got to be elite. And I think that's where the question mark's coming in, because obviously everybody loves Josh Allen. It's like, oh, this guy's great. He's great. It's like, yeah, but is he though? He's good, but is he great? I think we compared him to, I gave him the Big Ben. Obviously he hasn't won one yet, but it's that sense of like
you'll win one.
I don't know. If I had to put money down on him, I think the league is getting too good. I think Burrow gets one before him. I think Mahomes will get another one before him. And I think if it's the Bills versus the Jags in an AFC championship, going with the Jags. I mean, that's a little bit of a homer pick there, but I just feel like T-Law is going to get it done before he will.
Yeah, and you had a lot of heartbreaking losses too last year, and that's the worst, is when a team comes in and rips your heart out while it's still beating, like what happened with the Vikings. You were up, you were gonna win the game, and you fumble the ball in the end zone. It's just it seems like a team that just is relevant but can't get out of their own way, kind of like Minnesota, right? You have a quarterback that's really respectable and very good. You have players around him, but it seems that it seems that McDermott is starting to lose the locker room. Stephon Diggs not happy, cryptic tweets, throwing a temper tantrum on the sideline, screaming at him, saying I'm open, screaming at him they threw the ball wrong. Isaiah McKenzie decided to leave and not re-sign there. And it's just one of those things where, did they peak and that was it? Those couple playoff appearances, and that's going to be it, and then they're just going to start slowly collapsing because they can't re-sign all these guys.
The 13 seconds, it's going to haunt them forever against Kansas City. That's going to be the factor that it's always going to be like, what if? Because I'm looking at the divisions now. I'm calling it now that the Super Bowl champion is going to be out of the AFC once again. It's not going to be an NFC team. The NFC North is in shambles. I think the Vikings can do well. I just don't think they've got what it takes, and they own that division. That's their division to lose. Cowboys are a wreck. The Giants are a wreck. The Commanders they don't know who they are. Philly's not going to do it again.
Have an owner.
Yeah, Philly's not going to do it again. I think Hurts is a little overrated, and that's going to buzz some people, but it is what it is. The NFC South has no clue what they're doing. They're just thankful that they're allowed in the NFL. Champion's not coming out of that division. NFC West, you've got the Rams who are in shambles, the Cardinals who are in shambles, the Seahawks have Geno Smith who's not leading them to a Super Bowl, and the Niners who don't know who their quarterback is at the moment. And then that's the NFC right there. So it's not going to be an NFC champion. It's going to come out of the AFC, meaning the Bills are going to be, I mean, all those teams are going to be playing a gauntlet. You got the Bills, the Bengals, the Ravens, who are thriving right now. The Jags, who are up and coming, they're here. They've arrived. The Chiefs, obviously the Chiefs. The Chargers, they're going to be much better. In Miami and the Jets, it's coming out of the AFC. You can book it. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 to 3 years, your Super Bowl champion comes from the AFC. The NFC just has lost their pizzazz over the last few years here. So it's going to be tough. I just don't think the Bills get it done.
Yeah.
They can change divisions, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and then you start wondering if you need to make a coaching change there. And I don't know if that helps either, but Bills Mafia is not going to sit back and just make the playoffs and get kicked out of the first round. They're going
to be breaking stuff.
They already break stuff. They jump off trucks onto tables. They're wild. They're a wild group.
Even worse. Well, my thing, I see you guys saying the Giants are pretty good. Look, I think the Giants are good. I think the Cowboys, these teams obviously won 14, 12, and 9 games. And so I know the criticism is going to go through the roof on this. But mind you, remember who they're playing. They're playing all these teams that I just mentioned that are in complete shambles. They get to play each other twice, right? They're playing against the likes of Carolina, Tampa, New Orleans, Atlanta, who are not in a good place, right? Who's not in a good place. The Bears, who are not in a good place. Green Bay, who's in a sense taken a few steps back. The Lions are up and coming. Still don't think they have what it takes, but I definitely call them being a playoff team this year. I'm getting excited even just talking about it. But yeah, I know where you guys are coming from the Giants. If you can't look me in the face and say the Giants is going to win, make it to the Super Bowl or even win the NFC. They could because of how bad it is, but if the Giants in the Super Bowl, we can all agree it's going to be an AFC champion. Like, no way we're crowning Daniel Jones as Super Bowl. This isn't an Eli, okay, guys? This is not the same thing here. Watch me eat my words.
Isn't what Eli had.
Yeah, no. Not even the same. I think the Eagles are probably the best team coming out of the division. I'm just not sold on Jalen Hurts. If you look at the numbers, they're nothing spectacular. Okay? Nothing spectacular. All right, good stuff. That was fun. Next, we have KC. Did they lose the sauce, Cody's?
They may have lost the sauce.
Yeah?
Yeah, so KC is interesting, right? Eric Bieniemy, head coaching hot topic for a while.
Yeah.
He has had some off the field issues, and I think that's what it is. I think he's had like 3 domestic violence cases against him, so he will never probably coach in the NFL. I don't think,
head coach,
especially nowadays. Yeah, head coach. Yeah, he's not going to be a head coach
I always wondered
anywhere.
what the issue is. I never heard that. Okay, you better make sure that's fact check. We'll get slaughtered in the comments.
I know he's had a couple for sure.
Okay,
because I read a complete article on it. On why he doesn't have a head coaching job already. So, yeah. So he takes the assistant head coach and OC job, same job he was doing at Kansas City with the Washington Commanders. Maybe he just wanted a fresh start with a new team, and this is a key loss because Patty Mahomes has only had one OC, and that has been Bieniemy. And Patty said in an interview by SI, he said it's definitely going to be different. He was a voice that has been in the locker room my entire career. He means a lot to me, and essentially, to run it down, he just said, he's definitely a big factor. But what Kansas City did is they did something smart. I think, again, Andy Reid is ahead of the curve. He goes out and hires former head coach Matt Nagy from the Bears. Obviously he got fired and need a fresh start. So he has been Patrick's quarterback coach last year. So that's pretty big because you got another offensive mind that is in Pat Nagy. Now, does Kansas City take a step back? I don't know. I think as long as you have Andy Reid there and Patrick Mahomes, I don't think they take a step back, but it's something that we will definitely be watching.
This happened 2 years ago. I think they might be a little bit more in trouble, but Mahomes is more comfortable than he was 2 years ago. Andy Reid is an absolute G. We know that. You know that. Everybody knows that. I think he controls more of the play calling than we realize. Or we do realize. Also, too, when Tyreek Hill left last year, everyone's like, it's over. They're done with. They're the Bama of NFL. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately, and that system is a machine. And although he will be missed, I just don't feel like that division is going to be a threat anytime soon, and that Bimini was giving them an edge, right? I don't feel like they were 14-3 because of Eric was just bringing the extra sauce. I think they're 14-3 because they got Mahomes in the backfield. And watching the quarterback documentary on Netflix and watching what you mentioned earlier about them being creative with play calling, I don't think I've even seen Eric in any of the shots yet, right? That team is ran by itself in a sense. They've created multiple leaders along the team, and that's why I think that, again, it shows why that team is so successful. Because you allow those guys to create plays and be creative and be themselves on the football field, and that's credit to Andy Reid.
Yeah, and it has been a lot of Nagy and Mahomes shots, and they seem like they really get along well. So, I think Nagy just steps in and takes the role over. But it is interesting, and it is something that we had to bring up when I saw that, because you start chipping away at coaches and you start losing a player here, losing a player there, and next thing you know, you're not making the playoffs.
It adds up 100%.
And you wonder what happened.
And look, I think with the Chargers getting better, I mean, you definitely want to still be on your A game. I just don't see them slowing down, unfortunately. But good stuff there, Coach. Again, make sure you guys show some love. Drop a like, subscribe. Good to see all of you here. Yeah, Mahomes and Kelsey are the modern day Brady and Gronk. That's spot on, too legit. Spot on. Jags get a new home, which is great. This is good stuff for the Jags. I mean, there's a lot of fun things going on. Just Jag football right now. It's been fun to watch and be a part of. And they got a new facility. Obviously, a new stadium is coming. And it's it's weird. I mean, you've got an NFL program that is now catching up. It's a little behind. We're a little behind the 8 ball here. But being a Jags fan and being around here, you got to understand that something like this is huge because keeping big talent has always been a struggle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And although Jacksonville's wonderful to a certain extent, okay, Jacksonville's not wonderful. The surrounding areas, Ponte Vedra, where the players actually live, are fantastic. Their surrounding neighborhoods are great. There's no state tax. But again, the facilities are very mid. I mean, I would even say below mid. You go to UF, the facilities are much nicer. So, yeah, you go to the NFL and you go to the Jags, it's like, what the hell is this? So, this is good stuff for them.
Do you want to play the clip that I sent you on Twitter? Or?
Oh, shoot. I didn't know you sent me one, big guy. Talk while
Yeah, I sent you. Yeah, I sent you a clip. It's in your DMs. I always be sliding in there.
Yes, sir.
If you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, so this is essentially phase 1.
Oh,
and they had voted the worst facilities last year. During week 3 and 4, they had a rat infestation inside the locker rooms, and they had to deal with that. And so this is something that's big that again, I think that
good.
I think that the players, you are now going to be able to bring some better free agents there because they're going to see this new facility. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think this is something.
Sub, let's go, baby.
It's again something that the ownership is saying, we believe in the Jags and we believe in Lawrence.
Bro, do you see how pathetic this is though? Because this, honestly, what does this remind you of?
I mean, they got golf sim range.
It
reminds me
of the new Jag Center, or excuse me, the Gators.
Yeah,
like, dude, this is spit and image. Like they hired the same building company. Like, no joke.
Probably.
The exact same. I mean, there's a barber shop in there. Now, there's probably more things, obviously, with this, but this is
the golf
sick.
simulator. Yeah.
Wow, this is sick, dude. Like, that is incredible. Wow.
So how's your feeling on it as a Jags fan?
I'm fired up. I know they have some open practices coming up that are open to the public that I'm definitely going to try to go to. Will go, because if not, Cody will yell at me if I don't go.
Absolutely.
But this is the first of me seeing it. So thanks for letting me know to pull this thing up. I mean, this just looks fresh, dude. It looks so cool. And look, I think this is going to be huge for, acquiring big guys, signing big guys for contracts as well too. It's the small stuff that adds up. We're winning. You've got this great place to live. Everything's really starting to come together for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's just one more thing again, because I don't know if you followed this, Cody, with not, being a Jags fan, but there was always this rumor that they were going to move to London for forever, that Sean Kyle was going to move them.
That.
Yeah, that was a thing that went around forever. And this is just putting that to bed, if I had to guess. You know what I mean? Like, showing that, hey, we're dialed in here. We're all bought in. Sean's, Kyle's bought in, especially with the new stadium. The new stadium, if this is even of a hint to what the new stadium is going to look like, you got to be fired up as a Jags fan of just the money that's going into it. You got to expect that an SEC championship will be held there within the next 7 years, 5 to 7 years. A Super Bowl, we'll get a second chance at a Super Bowl in Jacksonville, which would be great. I remember when it came here in 2003, it was really cool for me. I was 10 years old. It was a big experience for me that I loved, like, being able to be a part of it. I mean, it was in all the Publixes and all that good jazz. They're trying to build a Four Seasons right there to really accommodate of growing the brand and becoming it. Look, you got a huge, massive city behind you, and this is how you continue to be successful and stay successful. Create a big brand behind you in a facility that supports the success that's behind it. You've got a couple first-round draft picks. You got to take care of those guys. You don't want to lose them. I think with the Bortles and Fournette, we've just always blown big big signs and big draftees. With one, they just didn't really work out, but also keeping them. And Jalen Ramsey's another one. Jalen Ramsey's a huge one. Like how do we just didn't take care of that because I think it's just look, we were a small market, but now we're creating a big market around us, and that's exciting.
And don't forget, he's going to spend $600 million on the outer area of the stadium, and that's not part of
which
this.
is a dump. Which, like, again, like it is unreal. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a Jags game, Codes, but
I haven't.
Probably not. I can't even, I don't know how to explain it. Like, compared to the UF is a college stadium, so it's a lot different because it's a campus. But it's just parking lot. It's just straight asphalt. That's all that's surrounding. There's a few restaurants that are up and coming, but it smells, it stinks. It's a dump around there. It's awful.
No, he's dumping big money in bars and restaurants. He wants. I know that from what I was reading, he's gonna re-innovate the parking lot to be more user and fan friendly for the tailgaters, like maybe electric out there and stuff like that.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot of I think I saw something about maybe some RV parking, so you don't have to make that drive back that night. I mean, he's doing it the right way.
Good.
And another team that has a really shitty facility is the Washington Commies, where their parking is in a grass field.
We don't care.
And if it rains, you can't get out.
They're a
Yeah,
dumpster
but
fire.
it's just it's a big step up for the Jags. It's something they've needed for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think the Jags could be a premier place to actually go and watch a game.
Yeah, no, I think that's where they're headed. And again, a premier place to watch a game and a premier place to play a game. So
yeah.
Good stuff for the Jags. Duval till we die here, boys. Last little bit here. Mims traded to the Lions. Cody?
Yeah, so Mims was traded to the Lions, the Baylor Bears superstar wide receiver. He hasn't really lived up to his potential. He was in that world beater 2020 wide receiver class. I think that's the same class as St. Brown. And he was traded for a sixth round pick. And so he's really done nothing since he's come into the league. But the Lions were hurting for wide receivers. They're a little thin. The Wisconsin Badger star wide receiver Quintez Cephas got in some trouble. They cut him. Jamison Williams got in trouble for gambling. He's going to be suspended for 6 games or so. So they really needed some wide receiver depth. My question is why trade him with Aaron Rodgers being there now? Why trade one of your weapons away? Randall Cobb goes on the PUP list, so you've thinned out your wide receiver room a little bit. I know they got the superstar, what's his name up there, at the Jets, but it's just kind of head scratching why you trade him away. I don't, everybody says, oh, he just needs a fresh start. But I have seen Laquan Treadwell, a guy that was a world beater at Ole Miss. I mean, was incredible. He went to the Minnesota Vikings. He did nothing. He was a bust. And then they were like, oh, well, he just needs a new change of scenery. Well, he did that, and it's never worked out. I just don't see the change of scenery ever really helping wide receivers. I don't know of one.
I think if
maybe
there's a place
Tony.
to go to where you could simmer down would be Detroit.
Yeah.
New York is a hard place, I think, for newbies. It is. It's just. It's harder, I think, than people can truly understand. Going into that New York lifestyle, the flashy lights, especially wherever you come from. You come from Baylor, come from Texas, to go into New York. Obviously, Zach Wilson has struggled with it. It's a cultural shock. Detroit, I mean, it's obviously a little bit different itself, but you got nothing else to do but just focus on football. New York nightlife, you can get away with you. It's just like going to LA with the Raiders. That's going to be an interesting one to follow with new guys going over there. I've already seen with Henry Ruggs. Miami, not as, I mean, it's wild down there, but it's a little bit different. But look, I think the Lions are in a good place. I think they probably feel like he could be a threat. Maybe they can utilize him even Muddy just said, they've got a solid offensive lineman, a solid D. That defense is coming together. Jared Goff, he brought a Rams team to the Super Bowl. He's a guy that knows how to get there, and that Rams team was built similar to this team. If we're being honest, the running game was much more impactful with Todd Gurley back there. But if you remember, towards the end of that run, Todd Gurley was not very impactful. It kind of fell on Jared Goff's shoulders a lot, which I think was due to the lack of success. But the wide receivers, I think the wide receivers are much better now than that team that made that run. The defense isn't as good as that Rams defense was, but it's definitely competitive. They're going to be a threat. I'm excited. I can't wait to see. I know you hate it because they're obviously in the Vikings division, but I'm excited to see them play.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's gonna change, his trajectory of his career that much. Obviously Tony struggled at the Giants. He was suspended a couple games for getting in a fight with a coach, and he requested a trade, and was never as productive as what they thought he was gonna be. He had flashes of Tony being Tony, right? But then he goes to Kansas City and he balls out. So we could see. It's something I'm gonna personally track. I'm gonna watch a little and see what he does at the end of the year. I'm not gonna put him on my fantasy team at all, by no means, but a guy that was at one time a absolute stud at Baylor. It's kind of head scratching what happens.
Well, it's your keyword there, at Baylor. All in all, good stuff. Good show, Coach. What do you think? Was it everything you imagined? Did it live up to the hype?
Oh, for sure. I texted you earlier today, and I was excited for it.
I've got something to run by you after the show. You might not like it, but we'll discuss it after.
I'm getting fired.
No, I've got
not yet.
You know how my head works. But boys and girls, hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe. We had our best viewing last show. We hit over 1,000 views, which is awesome for this show. It's growing, which excites us. And you guys are letting us know that, hey, we're doing a good job. So shout out to Codes for putting this together and, being dialed in as usual. Guys ready to rock. He's got his Beat Utah shirt on. Is that what I see? Let's go, baby. Look at that. High top special right there, boys. You guys, again, thank you for coming over and hanging out with us. We'll see you guys on Wednesday live at 8:35. Be good. See you until next time. Shelton.
I'm Cody the Professor.
Boogie the boys.
Don't want to